Hey everybody, what's going on? Fearless Front here, working in the garage today. Starting in on the mud mower for Paul. So as you can see, I've taken the hood off and kind of started taking most of the unnecessary crap off, and actually started to mount the Peerless transmission here under the back seat. Get some light here. You can see it there where the battery used to be. It's a 3-speed Peerless 700 series. And I've kind of reinforced the frame with some angle iron across the back. I removed the back plate temporarily. It'll go back on. You can see down there is the input shaft. And I've got it mounted way over to this one side because my plan actually, as of right now, is to build some sort of funky little drive shaft that will come off of this and have 2 bearing supports. And I'm going to run the sprocket that drives the rear axle right off the center, and I'm going to do that to keep the stress off of the nose and basically all the pressure off of the transmission. The transmission will basically just be a drive unit, and all the weight and stress will be transferred into these 2 bearings. It's kind of a tight fit right now, but let's see if we can get it out of here. There, now that the transmission's out of there, you can kind of get a better look at the cradle here that I've built. Way overbuilt here. I reinforced the back of the frame and then ran pieces of angle iron across to the front. You can kind of see there is one piece going across the front. And yeah, that should be plenty strong enough to support that transmission with all the torque leaning against it. So here's the transmission pulley that we're going to use, and that is about 5.5 to 6 inch. Looks like maybe 5 3/4 there. And these are the rear bearings we're going to use. I was originally going to do a 1 1/4 inch axle, but I think we're going to do a 1 inch because I've already got these bearings. They're heavy duty. Everything for 1 inch axle is pretty generic. It's a lot cheaper. The only hubs that I could find that actually match the 4-on-4 bolt pattern for Paul's rims here were aluminum for a 1 1/4 inch axle, which I don't like. I want steel. So we're going with a 1 inch axle. I've got the bearings, which is cool. I'm going to have to get bearings for the jack shaft setup down there for the transmission. I ordered a bunch of parts for this thing, so I'm kind of waiting on those before I can really do anything constructive here. So a YouTube user, I think his name was SSG Hick, left a comment asking why we stopped using Paul's original tractor. And here it is before you, Paul's original MTD tractor. And the short answer on why we stopped using it is basically because, you know, it's an MTD, kind of a piece of shit. But the big reason, one of the big reasons, was the steering. Well, you can't really see the gear anymore because it's covered in snow. There's a steering gear in here, you can kind of see it. And the way this whole thing sets up with this spiral, it's just a very bad steering system. Also, MTD chassis are inherently flexible, which isn't good, especially when you put big tires on them. They twist and bend. They also have that double pulley clutch. Let's see if I can flip this fucking thing over here. You can see it right there. And this is actually basically your multi-speed transmission on an MTD. There's no tranny in this one, obviously, because it's gone, but most MTDs have a single-speed transmission with forward and reverse. And when you scroll through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gears, or however many, I think this one even has 7, basically I can't move it, but this pulley will slide up and down, and it changes kind of like a torque converter, and it's kind of like a variable speed drive mechanism. It works pretty good. It works great for mowing the lawn. It's really smooth and everything, but you start off-roading with it and get it wet, and it doesn't work at all. If your belts stretch out, then, you know, it's a pain in the ass. If you have to change the belts, it's a pain in the ass. It's just kind of a screwy system, and it's a shoddy way of trying to replace a transmission with multiple gears. So we don't really like this setup, so we're going to kind of build him a new one. So up underneath the tractor here, you can see the steering gear setup, and I actually like this setup. It's kind of similar to the one on my Murray Mutter, which I've had really good luck with. I'll probably tighten it up a little bit. It's only got the single tie rod that goes down. I'm wondering if I can make it the double tie rod. I'm going to look into that, see if I can do that. That would be really cool if I could. So we're going to use the stock steering. The other thing we're probably going to keep using is the original clutch. You can see that right there going back and forth. But you can see that puny ass little spring right there. We'll definitely be replacing that with a bigger, heavier duty one. And that's a good tip to anyone that's building a mud monster mower. Your clutch spring is a very weak point. These factory clutch springs are meant to be easy and allow smooth engagement of the gears for, you know, mowing your lawn. But, you know, we're not mowing the lawn. We're tearing the lawns up. So put a stronger spring there in your clutch. If you can find another one that's heavier or shorter or anything really, just try. Or maybe sometimes all you gotta do is drill a hole, you know, a little further away to make it tighter. But if you make that spring tighter, your belt will grab better and be less likely to slip when things get wet. Front end, I really haven't figured much out with that yet. I know it's going to have to be changed around quite a bit. A bunch of you guys mentioning suspension. Definitely not in the back, just for simplicity's sake. But in the front, you know, that might not be a bad idea. I know a user named Reds02, I think his name is. I'll link his channel there below. But he's actually got a mud monster mower that does have front suspension, springs and track bar and or panhard bar and the whole 9 yards. So I might try a setup like that. I don't really know yet. It's kind of Paul's decision. He'll probably go for it because that's the way he is. So I know a lot of you guys were actually asking to see four-wheel drive on this build. A lot of you guys were asking. But unfortunately that's probably not going to be the case. This is just going to be a simple build for Paul to beat the shit out of. I just don't want to invest the time and engineering efforts into building a four-wheel drive system for this thing if he's probably just going to smash the ever-loving piss out of it. So it'll most likely remain a two-wheel drive. A few of you guys actually had mentioned putting stacks on the mud mower. And normally I'm actually very against stacks, mainly because if you roll over and hit the stack, you could potentially break it off of the motor or break the motor casting itself. But we're going to actually try to figure out maybe a way to make a short stubby little stack with a rain cap on it and see if we can pull that off and build it in such a way that it's not going to break off in the event of a rollover. But yeah, the seat's on from his old MTD. The springs are set aside there because I had to take them off to get the rear cover off. But he's got the deluxe model here. Tilt steering. I can't really do it with one hand, but you push the button in and the steering tilts up and down. Pretty fancy. But that also means it's got like the rubber rag joint, which kind of sucks. Oh well, we'll see how long that lasts before it wears out. Here's Paul's tires. There's a look at those things. Some of you guys wanted to see those. I mean, you can see the tread is pretty freaking deep. 4-on-4 bolt pattern, like 12 inches wide. It's just ridiculous. Can't believe you can put these on a lawnmower. Oh, and the Murray workbench, sadly sitting unused. So that's going to be pretty much it for this week. Not much I can do until I get my box of parts from BMI Carts. I ordered a bunch of axle parts, brake parts, the rear hubs, stuff like that. Stuff I'm going to need to basically get the ass end working. I've already got the chain. I got to get the transmission stuff sorted out, drill the holes, mount that, get the jack shaft assembly hooked up. So, you know, you guys will be looking for a video on that real soon. Hopefully I can get started on that sooner than later. But thanks for stopping by the channel. As always, rate the video if you liked it. Comment below if you have any ideas or suggestions or anything like that. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already because you want to see this thing completed, right? And we'll see you next week, hopefully with some really cool updates.